All right, so we have these general categories of work. One is assignments, and those are all worth 3 points each. And you just turn them in, you get your 3 points. If you were trying, if you used your time well. And then there's the informal skills evaluations, and those are 5-point entries in the grade book, but they don't affect your grade. It gives you an idea of what we've seen in terms of the skills that we're working on, but it doesn't change your grade at all. And then there's the formal skills assessments, and the skills assessments do count, and they determine your grade. And it is not unusual, especially around this time of year when people start getting sick or taking vacations, for people to miss class. So I want to lay out for you what I'm expecting to see in terms of the late work. The first thing is it's always a good idea to talk to a teacher. So in this class, it's going to be me or Mr. Fiskin, and you can just say, I'm going to be absent, or I was gone, or if you're homesick and you can send an email. If you communicate about it, that's huge, because we can be real flexible. We can work with you to, for example, excuse certain assignments or parts of the work. Our goal is for you to learn. We're not necessarily determined to have you jump through every single hoop on your way there. But when you are ready, part of the plan is the execution of the plan. So that means you contact us, and you're going to be gone for a day. We make a plan about when you're going to make up the work, and then you need to take care of it. And this, as soon as possible business, effectively means that you get to prioritize a little bit. Some of you are working with a teacher or a subject that's not as flexible as what you're going to experience in this class. If you're taking a math class, for example, you kind of have to get caught up. Like, you will be lost if you don't get caught up. So we understand that, and it's okay for you to prioritize math over this class when you've been absent for a few days. But we also want you to prioritize your work in this class over some of the other stuff that you normally do. So if your typical lunch is playing Frisbee with your friends, it may be that if you've been sick for a couple days, you take a time out from Frisbee and you come in here during lunch after you've got caught up on math or whatever the higher priority is, and before you go back to your Frisbee lunch, you come in here and you work with me or Mr. Fiskin to get your stuff done. And you could bring your food and you could bring your friends. Like, it's okay, but let's get you in here and get caught up as soon as possible. The work that you do during class, when we can see you, we evaluate these assignments based solely on your effort. So you get 3 points if you were working hard, concentrating, trying. Some of you had a conversation with a student in here just the other day, this was a student who was working hard, concentrating. They didn't actually have anything to turn in for the assignment. They got full credit anyway, because we talked about it and I knew they were here and working. But if you're absent, it's a little bit different, because then we can't see it. So what that means is, if you come in after being gone for a day or two, and you bring in a sheet of paper and you're like, here's my work for the aquatic macroinvertebrate, drawings or whatever, I'm gonna, instead of just saying, great, thank you, I may say, okay, well, how do you know this one is a mayfly? Because that was the skill that we were practicing while you were working on that stuff, is identifying organisms. And so if you just drew some pictures without really thinking about which organism you were drawing and what they looked like, then you didn't learn anything from the work. So we may ask you to do a little bit of extra work, because turning in a sheet of paper with correct information is not the same thing as learning. It doesn't show us what you've learned. It's a bit of evidence, and it's important, we need it, but it's not proof in and of itself that you've actually learned something and understood it. And then this piece right here, I fully intend to be very flexible with anybody who is doing their job on a regular basis in class. but just in case there's somebody in here who like is not doing their fair share of work, we probably won't look at your late work. This right here is aimed at people who are knowingly dropping the ball on a regular basis and then come to us, me or Mr. Fiskin, like a lot later, and they're like, okay, I need to bring my grade up. What can I do? And the answer to that question is, we already gave you what you needed to do to bring your grade up. And if you chose not to take advantage of that when you had the time, then we're not gonna accept work that you do afterward. And so this, as of right now, I have zero concerns about anybody in here. You'll know if I have a concern with you. I will tell you, and not in my usual joking way, like I will sit you down and say, I'm very concerned because I don't see you working very hard in class. I see you joking around, there's lots of talking, there's lots of looking at your cell phone, but I'm not seeing you thinking and working and learning about biology. You'll hear those words, and then you'll know, uh-oh, this is gonna apply to me. I'm the person who's not gonna be able to turn in their late work because I wasn't using my class time. So just be aware of that. When it comes to the informal skills evaluations, this formative work that does not affect your grade, you don't have to do this at all. The point that we are trying to make in this class is that we want you to learn. And so it's possible that you're gonna be out for a couple days, you're gonna learn everything you need to know. And when you come back in, we won't see evidence of that, but you're confident that you know what you need to know. And that's fine with us. So since these scores don't count towards your grade, you don't have to do them all. You just don't. Ultimately, when we put scores in that do count, we're gonna have you demonstrate those same skills. And so what that means is that if you wanna know what we've seen, look at those formative work scores. If you're confident that, okay, I can identify the aquatic macroinvertebrates, Briegar hasn't seen it yet, but when it comes down to the wire, he will, because I can do it, then great. But if you are feeling nervous, then come on in. And you can practice these skills, and if we see you carry out a task that involves these skills, then we'll put the score in. It doesn't have to go in from our standpoint, but it might be good information for you, because that is your feedback. That's what allows you to know what we've seen and what we believe you can do. And ultimately, it doesn't matter that much what happens with these formative scores, because the summative scores that are based on the same skills that fall into the category of skills assessments do count, and we have to see it. So if you have not provided convincing evidence of your skills, then we are not necessarily gonna accept like pieces of paper. You may turn in stuff, you may turn in a list of scientific questions, but that doesn't mean you know how to come up with one. The kinds of skills that we're looking for are the things that we do in class. So here's an example of a skill. It's one that we've already assessed, we've already looked at. It's the one that says, coming up with a scientific question. Do you remember how we did that? I don't expect you to, by the way. Just let's be clear. Like, showing us that you can do a skill does not mean that you will always then be able to do that skill into the future. People forget things, and it's cool. But here's what we did. We started with a plant. You guys brainstormed one of the plants that we looked at. And then you thought of a bunch of other things that could interact with that plant. Do you remember we did this? And I drew it on the board, and you drew it on your pieces of paper, little bubbles with like the name of a plant, and then there was like insects and birds and wind and water and soil. And then we brainstormed some things that we could measure about the plants, and we could measure about some of those other things. We could measure the height of the plant, we could measure the color of the leaves, we could measure the number of berries. And then we looked at the soil, and we're like, we could measure the moisture in the soil, we could measure the bugs in the soil. And we looked at all those things and came up with some things we could measure. And then I showed you how you can take the measurements and the things that we were looking at and put them all together in a question that sounds like a really good scientific question. What is the relationship between the number of berries on a trailing blackberry plant and the amount of moisture in the soil. That was the skill. And if you can do that, then you have that skill. If you come into this room with a sheet of paper that has a bunch of questions written on it, that doesn't tell me that you can come up with those questions. That just means you can write down questions. What I want to see is I want to see you actually come up with them on your own. That's why we did it in class where I could see it. And so if there's a skill and I have not seen you carry that out, then before I give you a score, I'm going to ask you to do it. I'm going to say, sit down, come up with a question. And if you can't, then I'm going to say, go look at your notes, go look at the videos that I've been posting to refresh your memory. Now come up with a question. And if you can't, then I'll help you because I want you to learn this stuff. That's the whole point. But I'm not going to give you the points until you've done the work, all right? And so we need to see it in here, or if you like to do stuff at home, you're welcome to, but it needs to be in a video. I need to see a video of you doing the work. I need to see a video of you drawing aquatic macroinvertebrates, or a video of you coming up with scientific questions. Just having a piece of paper with stuff on it is very unconvincing to me. It really doesn't tell me a whole lot about what you know and what you can do. And then this piece right here, this is aimed at that same group of people that I have seen no evidence exists in this classroom right now. The group of people that are not gonna work very hard, but still want a good grade or a passing grade in the class. And if you're not gonna work hard when you have the opportunity, then you will lose the opportunity, okay? So what I want to emphasize here is, I've told you before when we were talking about this stuff, you have a job. Your job is come to class when you can, work hard, and turn in evidence of your learning. Those of you who do that, you're going to find that I will bend over backwards to help you learn stuff, help you pass the class, help you get the grade you want. It's as important to me as it is to you. But those of you who don't do your job, you'll be on your own for at least much of this stuff. It's not that I won't help you in class, because of course I will. I'm gonna do my job regardless. What I won't do is go beyond my job. I won't help you on the weekends. I won't, do a Google Meet with you and talk you through the process of coming up with a scientific question so that you can demonstrate your understanding if, when you were in here, you were playing games on your phone when we had time to work on it. So this is, for those of you who are committed to doing your job throughout the year, there's no cautionary tale here at all. It's just, we'll get you caught up and we'll get you your points and we'll help you with the learning and we will help you get whatever grade and the credit in the class that you need. The cautionary tale is for anybody here who has a tendency to drift and not use their time and not put effort in, because then if you are absent, if there's lots of absences and you miss work or you are here and you don't turn something in, then you're going to find it's more difficult to get caught up.